What's up, Restoration? Brian here. So glad that you are with us again for another week here at home, online, wherever it is you happen to be watching. Maybe you're watching from your car. I don't really know. Maybe you're watching from the store. Maybe you're, you know what? We're not going to. Maybe you're at the beach. Unlikely. But, you know, you could. You could be at the beach. You never know. People are crazy, aren't they? We are in this Advent season, and we've talked about it a little bit last week on peace and giving up my rights. And this week, the Advent word that we're going to have is love. Oh, doesn't that just make you feel warm and cozy inside? The word of love. But this is a different kind of love that we're going to be talking about today, and it is the Advent season. The kids are going to be doing something on Zoom a little bit later on. If you have kids and you would like them to participate, you can message us for the Zoom link, and we will get that over to you. They're going to be doing some ornaments today, and it's going to be a pretty cool time. So make sure that your kids are getting involved with what we call Restoration Minis. We've got an entire page now dedicated to Restoration Minis, so that's pretty awesome, and you're going to really want to have your kids be a part of that. December does a great job. We're adding in another volunteer here shortly, and so there's going to be like a team of people surrounding your kids with love and joy and peace and hope, which are the 4 Advent words. I don't know if you caught on to that or not, but that is what that's all about. That's Restoration Minis. We're excited to have it, and then eventually we'll be back in the brewery, and we'll be having Restoration Minis in there as well, while we do small groups. Maybe you haven't checked out Restoration Church before. Maybe this is kind of your first foray into who we are as a church. So typically the way it goes is we start our services at 10 a.m. at Right Brain Brewery in Traverse City, and we have music, we have a message, and then immediately afterwards we gather together in groups. If you want to join a group, there's no like structure to it. It's just grab a table, get with some other people, and we talk about the message. We talk about what's going on in our lives. We talk about how the message impacted us or didn't impact us, and how it can apply to our lives. And so Right Brain is typically open by then, so you can grab a beer if you want to and sit down and have conversations with people who are probably going through a similar thing as you. And then if you have kids, that's when Restoration Minis happen. So December takes the kids to another area of the brewery. They do crafts together, and they talk about the message, and they usually end up playing pinball at some point as well. So it's a great time, and we hope that you won't just be someone who shows up, comes to church, and then leaves. I hope you can get involved with what we've got going on once we get back together. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I have no idea if we're getting back together on Sunday or not. This shutdown is supposed to be over on Wednesday. My gut says it's not looking very good that we would be back. I would say, I don't want to put speculation in, but I would not be surprised if we're not back together in the brewery until after the first of the year. So how about that for bad news, right? I don't know that, okay? Those are things that you hear rumblings of things, but I would be surprised if we're back in by then. However, we do have some cool things happening very soon that you guys can be involved with that'll get us sort of together. And one of those is this Thursday night. Guys, we are going to be at Right Brain Brewery. Russ at Right Brain has built some pretty awesome spaces outside with the kerosene heaters. And so we're going to gather together on Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. and we're going to hang out. We're going to do our guys' night that we had been doing for a while, and we're going to gather together. We're going to share with each other what we've got going on, and we're going to continue this relationship with one another in person. Now, just because we can't meet together for services doesn't mean that we can't still, in a safe way, gather together. And I think outside, even though it might be a little bit chilly, guys, you know you would hunt in this weather. Right? I wouldn't, because I don't really hunt, but you know you would. So that's going to be happening, and that's again on Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. and we're excited to be able to offer that to you. I think the women are going to do something as well, but you'll have to talk to Brielle. Okay, don't talk to me. Well, you can talk to me, and I'll talk to Brielle, and then we'll get you the info. How does that sound? So that is what we've got going on this week, and then I forget the dates, but it might be this Saturday, and then the following Saturday. Wow, we're almost to Christmas. We are doing COVID caroling. Okay, so what that means is our awesome community director, as I'm going to just now call her, Belle Allen, she's reaching out to a couple of local nursing homes that we would be able to go COVID caroling in. Basically what that means is we stand in the yard and we sing carols into the nursing homes, and hopefully they'll be able to hear us and bring some joy to places where people cannot go to right now. It's not safe for families to see their loved ones in these nursing homes. So we're going to bring a little bit of joy to these nursing homes, and we're going to sing some carols to them, and it's going to be a really, really great time. I could have done all of this in the 5-minute countdown, but I wanted to waste time. So there you go. And I want to take up as much time as we can together. So that's that. And then what the kids are doing, so they're doing these ornaments and things, and we're going to be trying to supply the nursing homes with some Christmas gifts as well. So that's going to be kind of our project for the Christmas season. Those are going to be the next 2 Saturdays, I believe. Stay posted on social media, and we'll get everything all out to you there. And I'll text whoever I can as well. So those are some things that we're going on. Last but not least, we are going to work on a Christmas Eve service. And this will look 2 different ways. Oh, well, actually 3. Okay? So number 1 hope is that we can have a Christmas Eve service in the brewery. Okay? We want to be able to, we're hoping that we'll be back in by then. Again, like I said before, it's not looking very good, but that was the hope. Okay, so that's hope number 1. Hope number 2 is that we have a Christmas Eve service at the brewery, but we would be outside, an outdoor brewery service, Christmas Eve brewery service, Christmas Eve service. Now that would be pretty awesome. I think we bundle up, we sing the carols together, distanced and safe and all that kind of stuff, so that we don't infect one another, and we're being as extremely safe as we possibly can be, only if you're comfortable with it. And then hope number 3, this is if those 2 things fail, here's what we'll do. On Christmas Eve, we will have a service online for you guys. I've got a worship team all set up. We're going to be starting to practice here real soon, and we're going to be singing songs together, and it's going to be an awesome time. So that is going to be Christmas Eve. I think we're going to do it at like 7 p.m. maybe 6 p.m. and one of those PMs. Do you ever look at the ads or watch ads on TV because you're watching football or something else, and these ads come up? And my favorite ones are the medical ads that show up for some sort of treatment where the terms and conditions apply. Right, you've got to say, okay, well, here's all the side effects of what could happen if you take this medicine. So if you have, let's say you have a hurt knee. If you take this medication, you will no longer have a hurt knee. It's probably like Tylenol or something. And all of the things that could happen after the fact are hilarious. Now, I know that's not really terms and conditions. Terms and conditions would be more like, when you go to buy a car, they say, hey, you can lease this 2021 Ford F-150, which usually costs $60,000, but you can get it for only $150 a month if you lease. And then underneath there is all the terms and conditions. If you are a GM or a Ford employee, if you have stock in Ford, if you have worked at Ford for over 35 years, if you are willing to sell the rights of your firstborn son, like all of the terms and conditions make it outrageous for you to be able to get that deal. Right? Very, very few people are able to get whatever that car deal is. But the advertising is like, wow, this is great. I could go get a new truck for $150 a month. Man, I'm going to go do that right now. And then they go in and then they got them, right? So at least for somebody like me, it'd be like, oh, it's going to be $500 a month, I guess. I'm here, so I guess I have to buy something. That's kind of the way that my brain works. So salesmen, please don't take that and use that, because I'll be broke. Yeah, so terms and conditions are something that we all deal with, right? On some kind of a level, we all deal with terms and conditions. When whether it's buying cars, or there's credit cards, or Black Friday deals, like there's terms and conditions, it seems, everywhere in life. And Jesus kind of talks about these terms and conditions in this week. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 43. And this is kind of a continuation on of what we talked about last week. So he's saying, you've heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Well, this week he's saying that you have no rights to retaliation. And you have no rights to, you deny your rights to retaliation. You deny your rights to things. You deny your rights to time, and you deny your rights to money. We talked about all of those last week. And this week is kind of a continuation on to that. So not only are we going to deny our rights, but he's going to ratchet it up even further than that. We don't have to, we begrudgingly are like, fine, I'll give up my rights. Well, I'm not going to like it. And then this week, he puts another term and condition onto what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. So, Matthew 5, starting in verse 43, says, "You have heard that it was said," see, he's doing it again, "you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy." So I want to stop right there real quick, and I want to just say that when he says that you have heard it said that you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy, in the Old Testament, it says clearly that you are to love your neighbor. But it doesn't say anything about what you should do for your enemy. And so what people kind of filled in the gap at this time, and they're like, well, I'll love my neighbor, but this law, I'm going to twist this law to interpret that I get to equally, as much as I love my neighbor, I can equally hate my enemy. So as much love as I have for my neighbor, that's as much hate as I'm going to have for my enemy. It's what was taught. So that's why Jesus again says that you have heard that it was said, not it is written. You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Whoa, Jesus, come on, man. Come on. What, you're asking me to do what now? Come on. Okay, so I got into the sermon. I'm sitting on this rock. I'm listening to you teach. You've said some stuff that I didn't really agree with. You pretty much claimed that you fulfilled the law, and yet I'm still here. And now you're saying that I have to love my enemies? Do you know what that guy did to me? Man, Jesus, that guy, he took one of my camels. Jesus, that guy taunts me every single day when I'm on my way to work. Do you know how hard it is for me to love my enemies and pray for those who persecute me? Ugh. What else do you have to say, Jesus? But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. What? For he makes his sun, rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. He makes his sun. Whose son is it? Oh, it's his son. S-U-N, not S-O-N. Jesus is subtly reminding everyone here, this is not yours, my friend. This does not belong to you. This stuff does not belong. You think that the sun is yours, that you get to have the sun, that you control the sun. Here, listen up. You want to be my followers? You want to be part of my Father's plan? And you want to be sons of my Father? Remember, he is the one who makes the sun rise. And your Father is telling you to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? We're supposed to be different than the world around us. And that's true back then, and it's true today, that we are meant to look different, act different than the world around us. And I don't know if we really do that often. I think it's easy for us to love those who love ourselves. I said that right. It's easy for us to say, okay, well, I'll love that person. That seems like it would be a pretty easy thing to do. I'll love that person that agrees with me, that we like the same sports team, we love the same food, we love the same drinks. Sure, I'll love that guy. That's really easy to love that guy. But that's what the world does. The world, that's an easy thing to do. He says even the tax collectors, who are considered probably the worst of the worst in this time, they would steal from the rich and the poor. They would put these taxes in place, and basically Rome would say, hey, you owe us some taxes. The tax collectors would be the ones who would go into all the villages and gather the taxes. And they would get the word from Rome on how much they needed to tax, and just specifically, not always just Rome, but they would then go to the people that they were getting the taxes from, and they would add their own cost on top of it. And they could just rip people off and say, hey, the tax this year is actually 50 pieces of silver when it was only 5. And so then the people would be like, oh, 50? Oh my goodness. So they'd hand over 50. Tax collector would keep 45, and he would give 5. So basically, tax collectors were very low on the list of people that you would agree with, that you would consider a good person. And Jesus is saying is that even the tax collectors do this. Meanwhile, there's a tax collector in their midst, a guy who was a tax collector and became a follower of Jesus. Look that one up. I'll give you a hint. It's who this book is named from. Anyway, so Jesus is saying we're supposed to look different than the world around us. Our love is what's going to define us. That they will know you are my followers by the way that you love. And we have that song that says they will know we are Christians by our love, and you march to it. So then the question needs to be asked, what is love? Baby, don't hurt me. You knew I was going to say that. How did you? I mean, come on. Even if this is your first time watching, you knew that I was going to say, what is love? Baby, don't hurt me. I have to say it every time, right? You could do the head nod thing with Will Ferrell, Chris Kattan. You know what I'm talking about. Maybe you don't. You should. Actually, I don't know. But what is love? Baby, don't hurt me. That's the big question that we need to ask ourselves, because we don't, the English language, we have love. We know what love, I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is. Forrest Gump, I'm going to be filled with references all day today, I think, when we talk about love. What's love got to do with it? Oh, goodness. This is not a good topic for me, especially when it's only me in the house, in the basement, and preaching to my dogs and to you. I don't know. I can't imagine what I'll be doing in the brewery either. But we have, in the English language, we have this idea that love is just this all-encompassing word. It makes us feel good. It's what we have for a spouse or a loved one, family member. We have this one word that encapsulates everything. So when I say that I love God, it can be confusing because it can be the same way that it says that I love my wife. I don't love God the same way that I love my wife. I don't love God the same way that I love pizza. That doesn't fit, right? My love for pizza is not on the same playing field as my love for God. And in the Greek, they had they actually had four interpretations for the word love. And I think it would do well for us to have more than just one interpretation for the word love. And so I would like us to start using Greek words if we can. Maybe not. But yeah, I think it would be an interesting experiment. If you want to look different than the world around you, this would be, at least in America, wouldn't look so different in Greece. But I think we need to understand what these four different meanings of love is, because we can love someone but not like them, and we can like somebody but not love them. When I was dating my wife, before we were like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Before we like, we were always a couple, so I don't know what I'm trying to say. Before it became serious, there you go. Before it became really serious, I would say I like you, and I didn't say I love you until like at least month 3, and that was just because I said I love you too, and it was the band and not actually her. But that was confusing as well. Anyway, the Greek has 4 different words for love, and I want to go through these so that we can kind of understand what Jesus is talking about, the love that Jesus is talking about. Okay, so the very first definition of love is called eros, and this is not what Jesus is talking about. Eros is not what Jesus is speaking to here, because eros doesn't even make its way into the Bible. This word had been so perverted that the people who wrote the Bible would not dare to say it out loud. So eros was a was a sexual love. It's where we get our word erotic from. It's from this word eros. And it got very perverted. It's a sexual love, but it got very perverted in that time, much like words can get very perverted today. I mean, there's things that we used to be able to say that we no longer can say, and I'm not going to say a single one of them because I don't want to get in trouble by anyone. So, but you probably can make a mental checklist of all the words that have gotten perverted in your lifetime. And this is one of those words in the Greek where they're like, we're not going to say that word anymore. We're just going to kind of put that one off to the side. So that word eros does not actually fall into the Bible at any point in time. But eros was a type of love that was a very sexual kind of love. The next word is called storge. Storge. I don't know Greek very well, so you tried to say it better than me. All right, that was pretty good. Storge kind of love is a family love, kind of like a parent. Like a parent loves a child. Like it's very familial. It's how we describe love for a family member. And this specific word, storge, also does not arrive in the New Testament, but its negative connotation, its negative form of the word does a couple of times, where he talks in 1 Timothy that at the end of the age they will not even know what family love looks like, and they will not love each other even as family members. They'll be brother against brother, all this kind of stuff. That was a different reference, sorry. But it's in 1 Timothy. If you want to look it up later on, read 1 Timothy and you'll find it, where he's talking about how in this end time family won't even know what love is. So storge is a family kind of love. It could be like a parent to a child, or like a spousal connection. Like you've got this different kind of connection with one another, and it depends upon the family. So this love is only used around family, and it's a nice word, I guess. I don't know. The next word is philia, or phileo love, depending on the, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. It's philia or phileo, depending on who it is that you're speaking to, whether it's a feminine or masculine. There, I did it. So what philia means is strong affection. Philia means strong, and I've just said it so many different ways. Strong affection. This is the highest kind of love that man is capable of on their own, is this philia kind of love. It's strong affection. It's friendly. It's this warm kind of love. Most of the time, this is probably the kind of love that we identify with in America, is this philia kind of love, or phileo kind of love. It's very friendly, and it's very warm. Like it's what all the movies are made out of, is this philia kind of love. In fact, we get a lot of words based off of this Greek word, like philanthropy, which is the love of humans. Or if someone's very philanthropic, it means that they're, excuse me, it means that they are very, they're very into human rights, and they love to be able to give, and they're very just wanting to help the community. They love human beings so much that they'll do anything that they possibly can to help them. So that's philia, that's philanthropy. Then there's the word philharmonic, which is the love of music. A lot of people have a love of music, and you've probably heard that term because I think it's an entire like orchestra, the philharmonic. And I always thought it was like a guy named Phil, and it's his harmonics. I don't know. I'm not very well cultured, so don't judge me. So there's Philharmonic. You've heard the city of Philadelphia. Well, it comes from the term of philia, and it literally means the city of brotherly love. I had no idea before this week why Philadelphia was called the city of brotherly love. I thought it had something to do with Rocky, but apparently I was wrong. Philadelphia literally means brotherly love. And that's something that this can also mean. Philia means the most friendly and warm kind of affection. And again, that's not what Jesus is talking about here. It's filled in the Bible. It's all over the place in the Bible. But this is not the kind of love that Jesus is talking about. And we're going to find out right now what that word that Jesus was talking about, the word love, that Jesus was actually talking about. Jesus was talking about, and you've heard this word before, Agapē love. This is the highest level of love. This is a divine kind of love. This is a love where that's without variables. This is a love that is sacrificial. This is a sacrificial kind of love. When we say in the Bible that God loves us, what we're saying is God agapes us. When it says that he loves us so much that he died on the cross for us, it means that he agape loved us so much that he died on the cross for us. In fact, anytime, well, not anytime, but most of the time in the New Testament, when we see this word agape or love, what's usually attached to it is the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. It's usually attached to the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. And you can go study it if you would like to. I encourage you, as homework, whatever it is, that you go and study this word agape and how many times it's found in the New Testament and the references beyond it. So you're going to find that a lot of this agape love is a divine kind of love, and it's love without variables, and it's sacrificial. And this kind of love is a love that stands alone. A love without terms and conditions. There doesn't have to be anything attached to this kind of agape love. There's nothing that it stands alone on its own. If we look at these other words, the word eros, which is again sexual love, that has something attached to it. It's a very specific kind of love, and it's only presented in a sexual kind of way, in an erotic kind of way. And again, that word has been perverted over time. It didn't start out as a perverted word, but it became a very perverted word. But attached to it, in order to have eros, it has to be within the context of sexuality. The next one was storge, which was a very family kind of love, like a parent to a child, which we talked about. So there's attached to it okay, this is only dedicated for, what's attached to this is this has to be a family kind of love. right? There's conditions that have to be met for all of these kinds of love. And philia type of love, philia, is a friendly and warm kind of love. You get that whole feeling of, oh, it's tender, it's warm. Like, in order to be able to do that, like, you've got to be human, and it's this friendly kind of warm. It's strong affection. So there's attached to it is like how I love a human being, right? The humans have to be attached to this kind of love. But this agape love, there's nothing attached to it. No strings attached with this kind of love. This is just sacrificial love that doesn't depend on anything in order for it to happen. It's a divine love. There's no conditions that have to be met. There's no terms with this kind of love. And this is what Jesus means in these verses. When Jesus is saying for you to love those who love you, he's saying that you should agape those who agape you with no strings attached, with no conditions. A very sacrificial kind of love. You would do anything for your brother. You would do anything for a family member. You would do anything for those best friends in your life. It's agape. No questions asked. It's unconditional love. Really what we're talking about is a divine standard of love. What Jesus is calling us to is a divine standard of love. So, we are called, in fact, in verse 45, it says, so that, this is why you should agape your enemies. What? Agape your enemies. I got mixed up for a second there. That you should love your enemies, that you should agape your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. This is what Jesus is talking about because it's what God does. And he says, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. So if we agape our enemies, we are treating them the same way that God treats them. And we look more and more like God's child. You and I are sons and daughters of the one true God. And if we're to act like sons and daughters of the one true God, we're supposed to be recognized as sons and daughters of the one true God. Like, I have my oldest son, Carson. He looks a lot like me. In fact, if you put me up as a 13-year-old and you just put my picture up right next to him, it's shockingly similar. The way that he is very similar to me. Sorry, buddy, but that's true. And he could go anywhere that people know me and say, I bet you are Brian's son, aren't you? You're Brian's son. I can tell just by the way that you are, the way that you carry yourself, the way that you are, the way that you look. There's things about you that I can just tell. I can just tell that you are Brian's son. It's like, oh yeah, that's my kid. That's my kid. Regardless of what he does, that's my kid. And he looks a lot like me, and he acts a lot like I do. That's the divine standard of love. We're supposed to look like our Father. The way that we love people around us is the way that God loves people around us. See, we're participating in the divine. Whew. Think about this. We participate in the divine when we agape our enemies. When we love our enemies in this way. And this type of agape love is a love of action. It doesn't mean you actually have to like this person. It doesn't mean you have to spend holidays with this person. It doesn't mean that you got to be buddies and call all the time. This agape love is a rescuing kind of love. And it's like, what are the acts that I can do that are going to show love to this person? And it's a very action-heavy word, this agape love. And so I can practice agape love for someone without actually loving them. It's an interesting thing. And what we find out is as we love our enemies, they become less of our enemies and more of our friends. See, there's this redemption and rescuing and restoration moment that happens when we agape the people around us. I've got a catch in my throat. When we agape the people around us, see, if you hate your enemy and you do things to your enemy, whoever it is, like just find that one person that you just can't stand, and think about this. The more that you hate that person, the more that you do wrong against that person, are you bringing them any closer to a relationship with Christ? If they don't follow Christ, are you bringing them any closer to a relationship with yourself, or are you just driving the divide wider and wider and wider? If you're only dividing, it means you're not bringing anything together. Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense, Brian. Do you understand what I'm saying? That this is the divine standard of love means that if I'm going to agape my enemy, it's eventually going to turn them into a friend. Maybe not ever a close friend, but it's going to eliminate the enemy status of someone. And that looks a lot like what Jesus did, doesn't it? In Romans it says, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. It means that while I still was unworthy, while I still had sin in my life, while I still was mired in the mud and I was rejecting God and I was doing things against God, while I was still an enemy of God, He agaped me so much that He died on the cross for me. And now, if I accept that love, I am no longer an enemy of God, but I am considered a friend of God. I am considered a child of God. And that's the kind of agape love that's going to change the world around us. Is this divine standard of love. Jesus uses this agape love with his friend Peter. You know Peter, we talked about him last week. Old Petey Pants. Peter had an issue, right? We talked about it a little bit last week, that he was unwilling to give up his rights at the moment of the cross. He was unable to give up his rights because he denied Jesus, because he didn't want to get put on that cross either. He didn't want to get round up and strung up and put on a cross like Jesus did. So he was going to deny Jesus and not give up his own rights. He was not going to deny his rights. He was going to deny Jesus. I think I just said all that right. Maybe I didn't. Whatever. And so now we have kind of the restoration of Pete. Okay, and it's found in John chapter 21, and I'm going to spend kind of the rest of the time in this passage of Scripture, which I know we don't have much of, but I want to spend the rest of this time in this passage of Scripture when we really put together this divine standard of love. Okay, and what this is going to require of us, what this is going to look like for us, because it's not going to be an easy kind of love. There's a lot of denying my rights in this kind of love. So if you have a Bible, I want you to turn to John chapter 21. We're going to start in verse 15. It's going to be on the screen behind me as well. So this is John chapter 21. Jesus has resurrected from the grave. Okay, so this is actually the last chapter of John, and this is some of the last verses that John actually writes. Now, John is also a disciple of Jesus, and he writes this. This is from his own writing, and this is how he recounts this story. So they're back with Jesus and they're having breakfast. And here we go, starting in verse 15. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John," he addresses him in a very formal way. "Do you love me more than these? Do you agape me more than these?" That's the word that Jesus used. Do you agape me more than these? Now, some interpretation is, do you agape me more than these fish, like than your job, than the things that you're doing? But what I believe the other way is, do you love me more than these other disciples love me? You claim that you did. Remember back at the Last Supper. You said Jesus doesn't call it the Last Supper. He's like, this is my Last Supper. But Peter says that he loves him more than any other disciples. And in that time, Peter was using the philia kind of love. That he does this more than any of the other disciples. So Jesus asks him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Do you agape me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord. You know that I love you. Peter uses the word philia again. Yes, Lord, I have a brotherly affection for you. I have the highest level of love. I have this warm feeling about I accept you as my brother kind of a love. He said to him, Jesus, feed my lambs. Feed my lambs. He said to him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Do you agape me? He said to him, yes, Lord. You know that I philia you. He said to him, tend my sheep. I don't know if Peter is apprehensive because knowing what he said last time at the Last Supper of like, oh, last time I kind of messed this up, so this time I'm going to kind of scale back a little bit and make sure that I can keep this promise. Let my yes be yes and my no be no, right? This time I'm going to make sure that I can keep this whole thing. Let my yes be yes. I'm going to say, yeah, I philia you. She's like, that's not what I'm asking you. Do you agape me? Without sacrifice, or with sacrifice, without any conditions, without any terms put onto this. Do you agape me? Meaning, no matter what happens, are you going to love me? Are you going to follow me? Are you going to do the things that I do? He said to him, tend my sheep. He said to him a third time, this is interesting, Simon, son of John, do you philia me? Jesus changes it the third time. Do you philia me? Peter was grieved. Peter was grieved. He knew what this was. Nope. Stop it. Vacuum. Do you Peter says, there's distraction everywhere. It doesn't matter where I go. It doesn't matter what I do. There's going to be distraction. Peter says, do you... Yes, Lord. And he's grieved. Sorry. Peter was grieved because he knew what happened 3 times before at the cross when he denied him 3 times. So he knows the significance of Jesus asking him 3 more times, do you agape me? Do you agape me? Okay, fine. Do you philia me, Peter? Peter was grieved because he said to him the 3rd time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I philia you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. We have a command to love, to agape. And this agape kind of love is going to spur us to tend to the people around us, to love his sheep, to love his flock, to tend to his sheep. Jesus says, truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go. This he said to show by what kind of death he was to glorify God. And after saying this, he said to him, follow me. Jesus is saying, if you're going to agape me, understand that this is going to take you down a road where you don't want to go, where you are very, very uncomfortable. In fact, you're going to die a death like me. You're going to have your arms stretched out, and you're going to, another will dress you and carry you wherever you go, where you do not want to go. This is going to end very poorly for you, Peter. If you're going to agape me, this is the kind of standard that I'm saying. And this word follow me, Jesus says this again at another time when he calls Peter to put your nets down and follow me, because he's going to make them fishers of men. And so Jesus here is saying, continue, keep following me. Peter's like, oh, I don't know anymore about this one. Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved. That's John. And of course he calls himself the disciple whom Jesus loved. Why wouldn't you? You wrote the book, so you can call yourself whatever you want. If I wrote the gospel of Brian, it would be Brian, whom Jesus loved the most, right? I mean, that's just makes me seem pretty awesome. Whom Jesus loved, following them, the one who also had leaned back against him during the supper, and he said, Lord, who is it that is going to betray you? When Peter saw him, he said to Jesus, Lord, what about John? I know how I'm going to die now, but what about John? What about this man? Sorry, I didn't let you see that. Jesus said to him, if it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? You follow me. We have this divine standard of love. Peter's like, oh man, I'm going to have to go to the cross. Jesus, what about, what are you going to do to him? What are you going to do to John? Tell me about John, would you please? Because I'm feeling a little bit uneasy about what's happening with my life right now. And Jesus replies, what is that to you? What do you care what I do to that person? What do you care about what the will is for that person? What's my will for you? And for Christian, for us today, why are we so concerned about what that person's doing or what that person's doing, or for me, like what that church is doing or what that church is doing? What has God called me to do? What has God called you to do? What is Jesus telling us to do? Stop focusing everywhere else, okay? What is Jesus calling us to do? Follow him. Don't worry about what I'm going to do with him. Don't worry about what's going to happen to John. What are you going to do? You follow me, is what Jesus is saying. We have a divine standard of love. And in order to make this happen, we're closing up here. Love starts inward and moves out. Love starts inward and moves out. If we're going to have this divine standard of love, we need to realize, first of all, that we need to agape yourself. It starts inward and moves out. So it starts from the inside. It starts with understanding that Jesus loves us the exact same in this moment. And whatever you're doing right now, Jesus loves you the exact same as he always has for all of eternity. Whether you had a brilliant week of following Jesus this week, or whether you took a different path and went completely the wrong direction, I need you to hear this right now, that Jesus loved you the same in your filth as he does redeemed. He loves you the same whether you're following his will or you're going against his will. And that gives us a lot of grace, and that should give us a lot of comfort and allow us to agape ourselves, to love ourselves. If I don't love myself, then, and I know this sounds kind of like, I don't know, self-helpy, but if I don't love myself, then I am going to have a lot of issues loving other people. If I hate the way that I feel about myself, then I'm going to project that onto other people. So it has to start with loving myself. I need to understand that I'm redeemed, that I'm loved by the Creator, and there's nothing that I can do that's going to change that. There's no terms. There's no conditions. His love for me is pure and deep, and all I have to do in return is accept that love. From my core, to really know that I'm loved, that I'm agapēd. By the one true God. So when we understand that we agape ourselves, we agape the church, we agape those around us, this church, Restoration Church, and the capital C church, the church around us, the collective church. We love the church, and we're unified together as one church. It's horrible to hear the stories of disunity and things happening within the church. I just heard a story this week of a friend of mine who has a friend who, this friend, not my friend, but the friend of a friend, back in November voted for Biden. Okay? And their small group called into question this friend's salvation because of who they voted for. They've been excommunicated basically from their small group because of who they voted for. Is that an agape kind of love? No. No, that's a kind of love with conditions put on it and terms put on. Okay, if you vote for the people that I vote for, if you look the way that I look, if you believe all the same things that I believe, if we go to the same church and do the same things, then we can agape each other. No! What happened to having conversations with people? Just one-on-one conversations to say, hey, what do you think? What do I think? What's going on in your life? What's going on in my life? How do we do that? Agape the church. If we want to see the world around us, if we're going to agape the world around us, it's going to take us agapeing the church. And people will take notice of that. Wow, you guys are so different. It doesn't even matter who you are, where you're from, what your background is. But if you believe in Jesus, you guys really treat each other really well. It doesn't matter who you voted for. It doesn't matter how you carry yourself. You guys just take care of each other. I want a part of that. But I think right now the world sees the church divided, having arguments about whatever, putting ourselves first. And they're like, why would I have any part of that? It looks exactly the same as what my life is right now. You're saying you're offering peace. You say you offer hope. You say you offer love, but I don't see it. If we're going to agape the world, we have to take care of the first two. Agapeing the world looks a lot different than how we're doing it right now. And I remember, I know we're overtime, and you know what? You're sitting on your couch. Get more coffee. Pause it. I don't care. This is a sacrificial kind of love. This is a giving up my rights kind of love. This is a putting others first kind of love. I mean, look at the example of Peter. This is a kind of agape love where we empty ourselves and the path is not easy. Jesus is saying, follow me. The path isn't going to be easy. What I'm going to ask you to do is not going to be easy. But man, the payoff is worth it. The payoff is so worth it. And we get this confused. We figure what agape means to the world around us, and we take action in really horrible ways. I've shared the story before that when I was a teenager in high school, we would go and protest, and thought we were doing the right thing. I thought I was doing the right thing as a 14-year-old. we'd go and stand on the street and hold up signs that says abortion kills children, and pretty much protest people who are getting abortions. We'd stand on street corners and on the sidewalk. I remember only doing it once, but it was big enough for me to remember that man, we all piled into the church van, and we're going to go agape the world, right? We're going to go love the world around us. And so we're going to hold up these signs that say abortion kills children, and abortion is sin, and all of this other kind of stuff. And we're holding up these signs, and cars are honking at us as they go by, whether they agree with us or whether they're very angry with us. You know what I found out is the people who agreed with us were Christians. The people who didn't agree with us were probably from the world. That wasn't agape, the world. That was holding up my rights. And do I think that abortion is a problem? Yes. Here's what I mean. If we're going to agape the world around us, that means that instead of holding up a sign at the abortion clinic, maybe I'm going to pray for the people that go into it. I don't know the circumstances. I don't know what's going on in those people's lives, but I'm pretty sure holding up a sign that says abortion kills children is not going to help them. Maybe I'm wrong. But I hope that Restoration Church can be a church that agapes. I think the better thing for us to do would have been instead just to ask people going in if we could pray for them. Ask people coming in or going out if we could have a conversation with them just to see, how are you doing? Maybe there was a get well package that we could have put together. So we don't agree with your decision. We don't really understand. Maybe agapeing the world around us. Maybe that means instead of holding up signs, maybe it means we get involved in the adoption process and making sure that these kids are taken care of. Instead of just blaming and saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Maybe we say, hey, how can we help you keep this child? I don't mean to make this all about abortion. You can talk about whatever you want, but I'm just giving this example because it's something that I know that, man, agapeing the world is a lot different than what we think. We have a divine standard of love. And I hope we can show that love to a world that desperately needs it right now. Christian, the world is screaming for agape love. They've seen eros kind of love. They've seen a storge kind of love. They've seen philia love, phileo love. And it hasn't satisfied. The only ones who hold the key to agape love are people who follow Jesus Christ. We are the rescue mission. We are the plan. To see a dying world get saved. We carry out the mission. And there is no plan B for us. God's not sending in another group of other Christians that he's going to call something else. We hold the key to agape kind of love. There is no other plan. Jesus sent his son to die on the cross to show the world what agape looks like, to allow us to have access to agape love. Not so we can keep it for ourselves, but that we can spread agape love to the world around us. We're the only ones who have it. We're the only ones who can share it. So my challenge for you this week is to share agape love with the world around you. On your social media, with your conversations with family, as we make decisions going forward, through the whole COVID stuff. Man, we have a divine standard of love. Let's pray, because I'm way over time. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your love. Thank you for what you've done for us. God, thank you that you've shown us agape love. I pray that you would continue to work in my life. God, I pray that you would work in this church. To be a church of agape love. Thank you for your blessings. Thank you for what you've done for us. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Thank you guys so much for coming out. We will talk to you later.